It is a brand new episode of Flyers Day. I'd like to welcome everybody to September, as we are September 2nd. Flyers Daily is always presented by Ticketmaster. Make more memories live. A lot to discuss in this episode, and we are certainly going to take a departure from the norm. Joining us for this one, as he does every Monday, it is from PhiladelphiaFlyers.com, NHL.com, and HockeyBuzz.com. It is Bill Meltzer. Bill, it's been a very trying week for the hockey community writ large, and certainly locally as well, with the tragic death of Johnny Gaudreau and Matthew Gaudreau.
Without a doubt. I actually, the night of the accident, I actually went to bed early. So I got a text from a good friend of mine, hockey community guy, and just like, listen, heard about it, and don't say anything about it, whatever. But he sent that at about 10 p.m.
Yeah.
And I woke up, and that's why I woke up to at 3 a.m, honestly. And it's when it's.
You think you're dreaming or having a nightmare, right?
You realize it's like, it is. It's a nightmare, and you're just hoping against hope. It's somebody that I trust implicitly, but you're just hoping against hope that it's. The information was wrong somehow, or and then you go by each passing half hour even, and you don't hear any denial. There's no official confirmation yet, which is really, that's the case where it's bad news, where you know that they're just making sure that everybody's notified. The statements are being prepared and whatever, and it's coming, and it's just it's purely heartbreaking. Just even apart from the hockey community, just when that it's a young father of two, one of them's 6 months old. The older one isn't even quite 2 years old yet. Matthew's wife is pregnant. She's due in December. I mean, just all the circumstances of it. What a needless, horrible thing it was to have a person getting behind the wheel when he should have been getting behind the wheel. And look what he took away. Look what he took away for their wives, for their parents,
multiple generations, Bill.
Yeah, for their sister, and for whatever family this guy has. I mean, it's just nobody involved in this will ever be the same or ever be whole again. And it's horrible. It's horrible. I'm so not to where I can even think about the hockey implications of any of this. I think that's going to be a little while yet. I mean, so much so that I realized when I wrote the first piece I wrote about it, I neglected to mention that there was a bit of a Flyers connection because Matthew played for the Reading Royals in the ECHL for a time, and I just didn't mention it because wasn't even thinking about it at the time. It was just so involved with the other, all the other implications of all of this, and it's going to take a while, for just anybody who's ever had connection hockey in the area, who's ever dealt in any context with the Gaudreau brothers. And I didn't know either of them well, but I do remember that doing a story, promoting, checking for charity, and it was the 2018 version. I did speak with Johnny, and he couldn't have been nicer.
Does that down in Atlantic City? Is that when he did that showcase down there?
Yeah.
Yep.
And I mean, all the local hockey community guys stay involved with it. I remember, TJ Brennan, talked to TJ about all that, and they stay involved. Tony D'Angelo has stayed involved with that too. But it just speaks to how tight knit the hockey community is in our area, and how much all these guys know where they come from and how important it is to all those guys. And it's something that the Gaudreau family, Johnny especially, but his dad, his brother, I mean, they're royalty in our area.
Yeah,
the hockey community, and it's just that's indelible, but it's such a loss, and it's something that I think we can remember all the good things that they help bring to our hockey community, helping to grow the game and how much they've meant to so many people. But it hurts. Even those of us who don't have as much personal connection. It's very hard. Very hard.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't have any personal. The hockey community is very small and in this area, and I never had chance to meet Johnny Gaudreau individually or his brother. And in talking to people since this happened, and like you, I found out that night around 11 o'clock, somebody that I implicitly trust had texted me and said, "Can you believe this?" And I wasn't even on social media or anything, so I had no idea. And just even 2 days later, still trying to come to grips with this, and not from the hockey standpoint, like you said. I'm trying to make sense of how, they're in town for his sister's wedding. All of these things, and it's just so tragic and heartbreaking to see, and not because he's a hockey player, and because Matthew was a coach and a former hockey player, but because it was so senseless. Like in this day and age. Like, there is no excuse to get an Uber, whatever you got to do. You cannot get behind the wheel because this type of thing can happen. And it's still even, I still kind of want to pinch myself and not believe that what took place has taken place. And like you said, the loss is insurmountable. For many generations now, I just wish, the family all the strength in the world. There's not going to be any fixing this. There's nothing magical we can say or anybody can say to make them feel better. But I just wish them all the strength in the world and how they can somehow get through this, because it is absolutely tragic and heartbreaking what took place. And I wanted to turn this episode. I didn't want to just say, okay, hey, we're in the month of September. Let's start looking ahead and have some fleeting thoughts on this and move on. Because I do want to talk about the impact of, the hockey community is very small, and the hockey community will do its best to help this family and everybody that is affected. And, I know up at Hollydale, which was Johnny and Matthew's home rink, and Matthew, as a matter of fact, had coached last year with the Philly Rebels of the North American Hockey League. I know they shut down on Friday. I have a friend of my son's that I coached that's playing for that team, so they're in mourning. And the Little Flyers organization, who Johnny played for as a kid, and Team Comcast, and all of those things. But just looking at the impact of him on the local hockey community, because we don't get a lot of guys that have come through here, Bill, from this area. We've had some guys make the pros. We've had some guys drafted. But he was, he and Mike Richter are the highest profile players to have NHL success of anybody that grew up in the South Jersey, Philadelphia, Delaware area that I can think of. I mean, I can't imagine. I mean, as the skater goes, he was the cream of the crop.
Oh, without question. USHL, Boston College, or might rather be
Hobie Baker.
Playing Boston College. The Hobie Baker winner was part of a prolific scoring line there. That's a name that you knew, and it was always, there was always that he's so small. He's just so small.
Yep. He won't succeed at the next level. Yeah. Then he dominated the USHL, and he wins the Hobie Baker at BC.
Well, one level after the other, and it's funny. There is a little bit of a Flyers connection here, where in his draft year, Flyers scouts are saying, you know what? If he hangs around to the end of the draft, we're taking him. Whether it's the 6th round or the 7th round, we don't know, but we'll take him. Now, of course, Calgary had the guts to take him much earlier.
4th round, yeah.
4th round, yeah. And of course, had he been bigger, he would have gone 1st round. But but still, 4th round. Those are the middle rounds of the draft. But sometimes the legendary Jerry Melnick used to tell this, all the Flyers scouts. At the end of the day, there's no substitute for talent. You can look at every other variable, but this guy's just so much better than the other guys. Take a chance, and watching what he's accomplished. He put up some really big numbers. And he's an artist.
Yeah.
He wasn't called Johnny Hockey for nothing. I mean, he could really he could do anything he wanted to do with the puck on the stick. And and just had that mentality of, well, doubt me and I'll show you.
He never made his size part of the equation because he never put himself in positions to get hit. He was so light on his feet.
Exactly. By the time you'd have him, he'd be gone, and the puck could be gone.
Yeah.
So it was always a fun player to watch.
Yeah.
Whether he was playing for Calgary, whether he was playing for Columbus, it didn't really matter. He's one of those guys who was a player you enjoyed watching just for loving the game. No matter what uniform he was wearing, what team you're rooting for, and those are players that ultimately, you just know that you always have the game circled when you're playing, and especially when he's in the other conference, you're only playing them twice a year.
Yeah.
Those are always really special games to watch, and that's for
your eyes would just happen to end up on him all the time.
All the time. And
yep.
One of those says the puck just found him. And,
yep.
and he had that sixth sense to always be, as they say, not where the puck is, but where it's going.
Yeah,
he had that sense of and that's how the puck always found him, because he knew where to go at the right time, and that's something you could teach, right? It's something that's innate.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. You'd watch the game and you just find yourself tracking him. Every time he was on the ice, because he was just so omnipresent. I mean, the numbers he put up, Bill, like you mentioned, in Calgary in the 9 years there, over a point per game player, 602 games, 609 points. In 2 years with Columbus, 161 games, 134 points. Not his most prolific scoring years. Didn't have quite the supporting cast, with having a guy like Matthew Tkachuk and Elias Lindholm like he had in Calgary. But I knew you and I were both kind of conflicted a couple of summers ago when he was available. It was clear he wanted to come back home and come to Philadelphia, raise a family around his family. And it's not often you have a team in the state the Flyers were in where you had this free agent he's coming off a 115-point year. He was unbelievable. He had 70 assists. And he wants to come here. It wasn't the right time ultimately for the Flyers. But it was a conflicting feeling because I love the kid that wants to come home and wants to be a part of this. But it just wasn't the right time from an organizational standpoint. And I know I felt conflicted. I'm sure you did as well.
Oh, absolutely. And I remember on our show saying, listen, it's not about Johnny. It's really about the state of the Flyers, the state of the rebuild, and allocating cap dollars and team building. And you likened it to you have a hole in the foundation of your house.
Your house is in disrepair.
And so you have to rebuild the house before you put the Porsche in the driveway. And Johnny was that Porsche in the driveway because he's a spectacular talent on the wing. When you're building a team, it still is the most prevailing wisdom. You build down the middle. You need the center. You need the defenseman. The goalie has to be in place, and then you can add the big name winger, especially when you have only so many dollars to go around. But would it have been a hell of a lot of fun to watch every game when we were saying that time? Oh my God, yeah. Even if you're not winning at the time, it gives you something to watch in every game. So it was really hard. It was very conflicting because you really want the player, but you understand in order to establish what you need to get the team on a track to where you could add a Johnny Gaudreau, and that would be that big move that might catapult you to that next stratosphere into where you are a contender. You have to, first things had to come first. But if the timing had been right, absolutely 100%.
Yeah, it would have made each individual game more palatable to watch in the 22-23 season and last year, frankly. But it may not have been the best for the team building. And that's unfortunate. I'm seeing the pictures, posted of him in his little Flyers uniform where, he played Tier 1 as a kid and to come home and play for the hometown team would be incredibly exciting. Bill, to some extent, Johnny Gaudreau was a star in the NHL because of the early success of the Philadelphia Flyers. Because, like I mentioned before, there wasn't a lot of players coming from this area making the NHL. When we see some players come from non-traditional markets now, whether that's Austin Matthews from Arizona, Shane Gostisbehere was from Florida. We've seen some players come from California, Cam York, as a matter of fact, and other non-traditional markets. But the way these markets start developing good players is oftentimes in direct relation to the success an NHL property in that city has. And the Flyers having early success really built youth hockey in this area. We said, wow, look, this team's having success. They got great identity. This game looks fun. Let me play. Then you couple that with the Miracle on Ice team in 1980 as well, and hockey kind of gets off and running here. But even as I'm growing up, and I'm playing in my high school years in the late 80s and early 90s, there's still not rinks everywhere. I mean, I'm traveling far to get to a game or a practice. I mean, now there's quad sheets 5 minutes from my house. In Aston, there's another quad sheet. In Oaks, there's 3. But that's all a byproduct of the Flyers' early success. And that probably is what ultimately, that boom and the talent constantly getting better in the area is why a Johnny Gaudreau can happen.
Oh, 100%. And it's a step-by-step process. The Flyers had their big success in the 70s. And you have all these kids that want to play. I mean, a lot of us, there were no rinks near us there. And actually, as a matter of fact, there was the very first place I ever skated in Northeast Philly was Ice Palace, and it became Roller Palace. Very shortly after that. So, there was Rizzo Rink. I mean,
right off 95.
I mean, there really weren't very many places to learn to play the game or skate at all. It wasn't really until I was 16. So, I skated more and really started, not even playing in organized level, just playing for fun in college and in the graduate school. But when you have a little community that starts and, a lot of players locally and not bad players, but I mean, it takes time to build that infrastructure of teaching the game to where you can have a level of instruction, a level of competition to where guys could grow as players. And there started to be just little drips and drabs of guys going. They play collegiate hockey, or a couple guys got drafted. Before the show, we were talking about the first guys who you were aware of. For me, it was Ryan Mulhern, because I was living out in Havertown at that time.
Yep.
And I think when you have players that are from your area, even a single one, it doesn't really matter how much impact they make at the NHL level, or just the very fact that these are guys who've skated on the same ice that you skated on, that they made it all the way to the pro level. It makes an impact on you.
Yeah.
Because if you look at these guys, you think, well, maybe I can. And I think that it has more young people who want to play, right? And then the programs that developed. You mentioned Little Flyers, right? The Learn to Play program in more recent years. That's been a huge thing. You're starting players very young, and all these things. We're starting to see some of the fruits of that. Whether it's there's Tony D'Angelo, even Colby Cohen from our area, and
Tony Voce too, he's an OG.
And you mentioned the impact locally. Of course, we lost Tony this year too.
Yeah,
and that stung too, especially because I just seen Tony at the Flyers alumni golf tournament.
Yeah,
and I only talked to him for a minute there, but I knew Tony, and I knew Tony a little bit off the ice. A couple times we got together for lunch, right? And he died so young. And also with young children, it was just so unexpected because he seemed just fine. And it's one of those. It's hard to gain any perspective in a situation like this. The only thing that reminds you is that tomorrow is never guaranteed, and whether it's hockey or anything else, you just really let the people that you're close to care about know that, because you might not get another chance. And I've wondered with Tony and with Johnny and with Matthew now, how many guys who knew them, what would you like just one more chance, hey brother, how you doing? Just thinking about you, see you around the rink or whatever. You wish you could have that one more conversation with them.
Yeah.
It's sorry.
I remember in 1985, this is 13-year-old Jason Myrtetus. In 1985, I think I'm in 7th grade at that point. And the first guy that I can remember played an NHL game that was local, went to Archbishop Ryan, was Ray Stazak.
Right.
And he played 4 games for the Red Wings in 1985. But it was like we all arrived. Anybody that was playing hockey from this area played in that game for the Red Wings. It was just a buzz around the rinks. Like, can you believe it? A guy from here is playing? What?
Yeah.
And I remember as a kid growing up, the byproduct of having the NHL team here, I played against Wade Clark when he was a member of the Gladiators at the old Coliseum rink. Yeah. And it was, there's Bobby Clark's kid. And you're playing against him. And it was like some like connection to the NHL because we're kids and we see the NHL as so far away. And then you mentioned Ryan Mulhern, who I grew up playing with and against for many years, and played with his older brother Robbie, and with Ryan at Malvern, and he goes on and gets drafted by Calgary, oddly enough, and ends up playing a couple of games, 3 games I believe, for the Caps after attending Brown University. He's in the Portland AHL Hall of Fame as well. And then you see guys all through the years, and you see more and more these days, whether, from this area. You mentioned Colby Cohen, and, Brady Kramer was a kid that went to Haverford School, played with Bundy in college at Providence College. Eric Knodel, who I coached with his dad at Westchester Ruston, played for the Phantoms for a little bit, was a pick of the Toronto Maple Leafs. You look at Stolars, D'Angelo, JVR, TVR. Go back a little bit further, and Jim Dowd from Brick was a legend back in the day.
Yeah.
Remember the 9 jerseys hanging in the Brick hockey rink of Jimmy Dowd?
Yeah. Yeah. And when you had, and he was from Delaware, but Mark Eaton, right?
Yeah.
And the first kind of local product who actually played for the Flyers.
Yeah.
And Mark wasn't with the Flyers long, but he was in the NHL for some time.
Yeah. And Wilmington Wheels he played for as a youth
kid. Right.
Yep.
Wilmington Wheels. Yep. And always followed Mark with interest. Took him. He was with the Pittsburgh. You felt you wanted him to succeed. So.
Yeah, it's so crazy. And I mean, you go back, and Bobby Ryan, obviously a number 2 overall pick in that Sidney Crosby draft. But yeah, some great hockey. A kid from Unionville High School, Ryan Lowen, was drafted a couple years ago by Tampa. Was in Syracuse playing for their AHL. I think with the Merrimack, if I recall, and played there. Played beer league against me, lit me up when he was home training for the summer. But you have all these guys here, and Johnny Gaudreaus from this area. All because the team had some success early, and this area caught the hockey bug, and it just keeps leveling up. And I hope the local community does something really big for Johnny and Matthew Gaudreau in their honor, and I'm sure they will, because their impact is going to be felt for a long time, no doubt about it. It's just incredible.
Even in some cases, guys who even play pro, right? Like Paul Burt played at Cherokee High School, and if you walk into the Flyers Training Center, there's a little memorial plaque for Paul in there, and for years and years there was a scholarship in Paul's honor. Scott McGee, McKay rather, he's always made sure to help keep his memory alive. And these guys are kind of local heroes, but I think they're so important to developing the game and giving something back too. When something awful like this happens, I have no doubt that the local community will rally here. The legacy part of it is something that I have actually no concern for, because it will live on.
Yeah. You mentioned before you have the programs that are directly attached to NHL franchises, the Learn to Skate programs, and Snyder Hockey, obviously, and that's the legacy of Ed Snyder, is Snyder Hockey, and what they've done exposing the game to so many in the urban areas. And we've seen the growth of Snyder Hockey, and Logan Cooley was a guy in the Pittsburgh area that he was the first one that started with a Learn to Skate Penguins program and made it to the NHL, which was like it's like, wow, everybody gets a Sidney Crosby jersey and a free, pair of shin pads and socks or whatever, and that's how it starts. But it's just the growth of the game in this area has been incredible, and I hope it continues to grow the way it has. And because I think there's, you talk about Johnny Gaudreau, and you see in his hockey reference page how many times he's in that mix for, the Gentleman of the Year award. Maybe that's not, a lot of people go, oh, hockey, a Lady Byng. Who wants to be the Lady Byng winner? Like, you don't want to be a gentleman, but it's off the ice and the way he carried himself. Just so much humility and humble. That's what you get from the game.
Yeah, and that's pretty much throughout the game too. They're listen. There's the occasional prima donna anywhere, but hockey people on the whole, they remember where they came from. They're approachable. They're certainly they're charitable. They understand the importance of community. Whether it's the hockey community or just the community in general. I mean, I see it on an everyday basis what the Flyers alumni guys do. And it's not just the Flyers alumni. It's really just the people in the game. And they're good people.
I think we'll leave it with this last thought. You don't have to have played in the NHL, or you don't have to have played Division I or in the East Coast League or the AHL or anything like that to get the right things from the game. Yeah, you can play at any level, and you can still get from the game what it is intended to give. I think from the stories I've heard about Johnny and Matthew Gaudreau, two very selfless guys who got all of that from the game. And unfortunately, they leave it too early because I think there was a lot more to give, both on the ice as a player for Johnny, and Matthew obviously is still coaching. But unfortunately, their journey on this earth has ended. But we got to, I guess, just mourn their loss and support their family. So we'll leave it there, Bill. Great stuff. We'll get back to normal hockey stuff coming up on Wednesday and certainly next week as training camp approaches and the rookie game's now less than 2 weeks away. But everybody, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Check out Bill's work on PhiladelphiaFlyers.com, NHL.com, and HockeyBuzz.com. And we will talk to you next time on a brand new Flyers Daily.